My son pushed me down the stairs for my inheritance. I remember the exact sound my body made when it hit the first step. A sharp crack of pain shot through my back as I tumbled down the staircase of the home I built for my family. At the top of the stairs stood my son, Ryan, breathing heavily, his face red with anger. "Just sign the papers, Dad," he shouted. My hands shook as I tried to grab the railing. "Ryan, this company feeds your sister too. I can't just give everything to you." That's when his voice turned cold. "You're old. You're slowing everything down." The next thing I felt was his hand on my chest. Then the push. The world flipped. My head slammed against the wooden step. My vision blurred. At the bottom of the stairs, I could barely move. I looked up at him, waiting, hoping he would rush down and help me. But he didn't. He just stared. For a long moment, he looked terrified of what he'd done. Then he whispered something that broke my heart more than the fall. "Just say you slipped." And he walked away. As darkness closed in, I realized something chilling. My own son had already decided what my story would be. But what he didn't know yet was that I would survive. And 2 weeks later, I would return with his worst nightmare. When I woke up in the hospital, the first thing I felt wasn't pain. It was silence. Machines beeped softly beside my bed. My body was stiff and heavy. A nurse noticed my eyes open and rushed out to call the doctor. "Mr. Bennett, you had a bad fall," the doctor explained gently. "Broken ribs. A concussion. But you're lucky to be alive." Lucky. I kept replaying the moment in my mind. Ryan's hand on my chest. The push. A few hours later, my daughter Emily rushed into the room, her eyes red from crying. "Dad. Thank God you're awake." She hugged me carefully, afraid to hurt my ribs. "Ryan told us you slipped," she said. My heart sank. He had already told them his version of the story. He said you were arguing about the company, and you lost your balance. I stayed quiet. Emily kept talking. "Ryan feels terrible. He's been handling everything while you're here." Handling everything? That's when I noticed something strange. Ryan hadn't visited. Not once. And deep in my chest, past the pain and fear, one terrifying thought began to grow. What if the fall wasn't the only thing he was planning? Ryan finally showed up 2 days later. He walked into the hospital room carrying a folder. Not flowers. Not food. Just paperwork. "Dad," he said, forcing a smile. "You gave everyone a scare." I studied his face. He avoided eye contact. Then he placed the folder on the table beside my bed. "These are the management transfer documents for the company," he explained casually. "Just temporary until you recover." Temporary. I slowly opened the folder. But something didn't feel right. Buried in the legal language was a clause that transferred full ownership of the business to Ryan permanently. Not temporary. Permanent. My heart pounded. "You want me to sign this now?" I asked. Ryan leaned closer. "Dad, the company needs leadership. The employees need stability." I looked at him carefully. "You pushed me," I said quietly. His eyes froze. For a moment, his mask slipped. Then he laughed nervously. "Dad, you hit your head. You're confused." He pushed the pen toward me. "Just sign." I closed the folder. "No." Ryan's face hardened instantly. For a split second, the same anger from the staircase returned. Then he stood up. "Fine," he said coldly. "But don't expect me to keep saving this company forever." As he walked out, I noticed something chilling. He didn't look worried. He looked confident. Like he already believed everything was about to become his. That night, a nurse named Carla came to check my bandages. She hesitated before speaking. "Mr. Bennett, can I ask you something?" I nodded. "When your son visited earlier, did he ask you to sign papers?" I looked at her carefully. "Yes." Her expression tightened. "I saw him talking to someone in the hallway earlier," she said quietly. "A lawyer." "A lawyer?" "He said you were mentally confused after the fall." My stomach dropped. "He told the lawyer he might need documents proving you aren't able to make decisions right now." In other words, Ryan was preparing to declare me mentally unfit. That would give him control over everything. The company. The house. The money. Everything I spent 40 years building. Carla lowered her voice. "I don't know your family situation, sir, but something didn't feel right." After she left, I stared at the ceiling for hours. The pain in my ribs barely registered anymore. My son didn't just push me down the stairs. He was trying to erase me completely. But what Ryan didn't realize was this. I had spent my life building things. And I still had one last move left. The next morning, I made a phone call Ryan never expected. I called David Cole. David wasn't just an old friend. He was the lawyer who helped me start my company 40 years ago. When he arrived at the hospital, his expression turned dark. "You look like hell," he said bluntly. "Ryan pushed me," I replied. David didn't react with shock. He just sighed heavily. "I was afraid you'd say that." "Afraid?" Then he told me something I never expected. "Your son contacted 3 different lawyers last month asking how to take control of your company early." My chest tightened. "He said you were getting too old to manage things." David leaned forward. But here's the part that bothered me. Ryan had also asked about guardianship laws. If a parent is declared mentally incapable, the child can take full financial control. Ryan wasn't planning something sudden. He had been planning this for weeks. Maybe months. David closed his briefcase slowly. "You need to understand something, Harold," he said. "Your son isn't just impatient. He's desperate." That word echoed in my mind. Desperate for what? And why would desperation make a son push his own father down the stairs? David started digging into Ryan's finances. What he found shocked both of us. Ryan wasn't just struggling. He was drowning. Credit cards maxed out. Personal loans. Private lenders. And something worse. Ryan owed a huge amount of money to illegal gambling circles. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. My hands trembled as David showed me the reports. "He's been betting for 2 years, David explained. And losing." Suddenly everything made sense. The pressure. The anger. The rush to take the company. Ryan didn't want the inheritance someday. He needed it right now. "If those lenders don't get paid," David continued, "they won't go through the courts." Meaning Ryan wasn't just greedy. He was scared. Terrified. And desperate enough to push his own father down the stairs. I stared at the hospital window. "I don't want to destroy him," I said quietly. David nodded. "You may not have a choice. Because if Ryan gained control of the company, he could secretly sell assets, take loans, and bankrupt everything. 40 years of work, gone." David leaned closer. "So here's the real question. Are you ready to stop protecting him?" I closed my eyes. For the first time since the fall, I realized something painful. The son I was protecting might not exist anymore. That night I made the hardest decision of my life. For 40 years, I protected my family. I fixed their mistakes. Paid their debts. Solved their problems. But this time was different. Ryan's greed could destroy everything. The company supported dozens of employees. Families depended on it. I couldn't let one reckless son burn it all down. So I asked David to do something drastic. "I want you to restructure everything." He raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I want to move the company into a trust. A trust would make it impossible for Ryan to sell the company or drain its assets. Even if he forced control." David smiled slowly. "That would make you untouchable." We worked quietly for hours. New legal protections. New ownership structure. And one final safeguard. If anyone tried to force control through manipulation or fraud, they would automatically lose all inheritance rights. David looked at me carefully. "You know what this means. If Ryan keeps pushing, he could lose everything." I stared at the papers. My chest felt heavy. But I signed them anyway. Because sometimes the only way to save your child is to stop saving them. And Ryan had no idea the rules of the game had just changed. 10 days later, the doctor cleared me to leave the hospital. Emily arrived to take me home. But I told her something unexpected. "I'm not going home yet." Her face filled with confusion. "What do you mean?" "I need some time alone." Emily assumed I needed rest. She didn't know the truth. I wasn't resting. I was preparing. David had arranged a temporary apartment where Ryan wouldn't find me. For the next few days, we quietly finished transferring the company into the protected trust. Every document was legal. Every step airtight. Ryan still believed he was close to winning. He had no idea he was walking into a trap. On the 12th day after the fall, David received a message. Ryan had scheduled a family meeting. He planned to gather everyone at the house. His reason? To discuss Dad's future. David looked at me and smiled. "Well," he said calmly, "looks like your son is ready to make his move." I stood up slowly. My ribs still hurt. But my mind had never been clearer. "Good," I said. Because in 2 days, I'm going to make mine. And when I walk through that door, Ryan's entire world is about to collapse. David managed to get a copy of the message Ryan sent to the family. It was polite, concerned, almost loving. Dad's health is declining, Ryan wrote. We need to talk about protecting the business and his legacy. Legacy. The word almost made me laugh. Ryan was positioning himself as the responsible son, the hero. Emily believed him completely. She even told me on the phone how proud she was of him. Ryan's really stepping up, Dad. I didn't correct her. Not yet. Because David uncovered something else. Ryan had already drafted guardianship paperwork. He planned to present it during the meeting. Once the family supported it, he could take the documents to court. If the judge approved, Ryan would gain legal control over my finances and business. All while claiming it was for my protection. The cruelty of it stunned me. But David wasn't finished. He slid one final document across the table. This, he said, is your son's worst nightmare. It was a full legal report of Ryan's hidden debts, gambling history, and financial fraud attempts. Proof. Real proof. I stared at the thick stack of pages. 2 weeks ago, Ryan pushed me down the stairs to take everything. In 2 days, I would walk into that meeting and take everything back. The night before the family meeting, I barely slept. Not because I was afraid. Because I was remembering. Ryan as a child. Ryan learning to ride a bike. Ryan helping me paint the first office of the company. Where did it all go wrong? Was it greed? Pressure? Or had I simply refused to see the truth? David noticed my silence. You still love him, he said. Of course I do. But tomorrow, you're going to destroy the life he tried to build. I looked at him carefully. No, I replied. Ryan destroyed that himself. All I was doing was stopping the damage before it spread. The next morning, David handed me a final envelope. Inside were the documents that finalized the new trust. Everything was done. Ryan couldn't sell the company. He couldn't drain the accounts. And if he continued trying to manipulate the inheritance, he would legally lose it. David smiled slightly. You ready to scare your son? I stood up slowly. 2 weeks ago, Ryan left me broken at the bottom of the stairs. Tonight, I was walking back into his life. And he had no idea the man he tried to erase was about to become his worst nightmare. The house was full when I arrived. Emily, my youngest son Nathan, a few close relatives. And at the center of it all, Ryan. He stood at the dining table like a leader giving a presentation. When the door opened and I stepped inside, the room froze. Emily gasped. Dad. Ryan's face turned pale. For a moment, he looked like he had seen a ghost. You're supposed to be resting, he stammered. I walked slowly into the room. I'm feeling much better. Ryan tried to recover quickly. Well, this meeting is actually about helping you. He held up a folder. These documents will make sure Dad's finances and company are handled properly while he recovers. Emily nodded supportively. Ryan opened the folder. Dad just needs to sign these guardianship papers. Guardianship. He was doing it exactly as David predicted. Ryan slid the papers toward me with a confident smile. I'm only doing this to protect you. I looked at the document calmly. Then I said something that wiped the smile off his face. I'm glad you brought paperwork tonight. Ryan frowned. Why? I placed my own folder on the table. Because I brought some too. And suddenly the entire room felt very, very quiet. Ryan forced a laugh. Dad, this isn't necessary. We're just trying to help you. I slowly opened my folder. Help me? I asked calmly. Then I pulled out the first document. A financial report. Ryan glanced at it casually. Then his expression changed. Where did you get that? He whispered. The room looked confused. Emily leaned closer. What is it? I spoke clearly. It's a record of Ryan's gambling debts. The room exploded with questions. Ryan's face turned red. That's private information. I continued calmly. Over the past 2 years, Ryan has lost more than $300,000 gambling. Emily stared at him in shock. Ryan, is that true? He tried to interrupt. But I wasn't finished. I pulled out another document. Loan records. Threatening messages from lenders. Ryan slammed his hand on the table. Stop. But the damage was already done. The family's trust in him was cracking. Then I looked directly at him. And that's why you pushed me down the stairs. The room went silent. Ryan's eyes filled with panic. But I still had one more revelation to deliver. And it was the one that would truly destroy his plan. Ryan stood up so fast his chair crashed to the floor. "That's a lie," he shouted. "No," I said quietly. "It's the truth." He looked around desperately. Emily looked confused. Nathan looked angry. Ryan pointed at me. He hit his head. He's confused. Exactly the story he had been spreading. But this was the moment I had been waiting for. I reached into my jacket and pulled out something small. A voice recorder. Ryan froze. "I started recording when you came to the hospital," I explained. Then I pressed play. The room filled with Ryan's voice. "Just sign the papers, Dad, you're slowing everything down." Then the part that made everyone gasp. "Just say you slipped." Ryan's face went completely white. The truth was now undeniable. But I wasn't done. Because while everyone was focused on the recording, David walked into the room holding another envelope. Ryan looked at him in confusion. "What is this?" David smiled calmly. "Legal consequences." Ryan grabbed the envelope and ripped it open. His hands began to shake as he read the first line. And that was the moment he realized something terrifying. The trap had already been set. And he had just walked straight into it. Ryan's hands trembled as he read the letter David had given him. "What is this?" he asked, his voice shaking. David stayed calm. "It's a legal notice." Ryan flipped through the pages quickly. His breathing grew faster with every line. Emily leaned closer. "Ryan, what does it say?" He didn't answer. So I did. "Those papers confirm that the company is no longer on the way you think it is." Ryan's eyes snapped toward me. "You can't do that." "But I already did." I explained slowly so everyone could understand. 2 weeks ago, while Ryan believed I was helpless in a hospital bed, David and I legally transferred the company into a family trust. Ryan's name was not on it. His jaw tightened. "You did this behind my back." "No," I replied calmly. "I did it to protect what I built." Nathan looked stunned. "You mean Ryan can't take the company?" David nodded. "Not only that. If anyone tries to manipulate or force control over Mr. Bennett, they lose their inheritance rights completely." Ryan froze. For the first time that night, fear appeared in his eyes. But he still didn't understand the full situation. Because the next page in that envelope contained something even worse. And when he finally read it, his entire future would begin to fall apart. Ryan slowly turned the page. Then he stopped breathing. "Dad, you wouldn't," he whispered. Emily looked confused. "What is it?" Ryan refused to answer. So David spoke. "That page confirms the second protection Mr. Bennett created." Ryan slammed the papers onto the table. "This is insane." I folded my hands calmly. "Ryan, you tried to push me out of my own life. So I protected it." The document stated something simple but powerful. Because of Ryan's actions and the evidence we collected, he was permanently removed from any leadership role in the company. But that wasn't the worst part. Nathan picked up the page and read it aloud. "If Ryan Bennett attempts to interfere with the company, manipulate family finances, or falsely claim guardianship, he will lose all inheritance rights immediately." Emily gasped. Ryan's entire plan depended on the inheritance. Without it, his debts could destroy him. "Dad," Ryan said quietly, his voice desperate now, "you can't leave me with nothing." For a moment, the room felt heavy with silence. But then David said something that changed everything. "Oh, Ryan," he said calmly. "You're not just losing the inheritance." Ryan looked up slowly. "You're also being investigated." And suddenly Ryan realized. The nightmare was only beginning. Ryan's face turned pale. "Investigated for what?" he demanded. David placed another document on the table. "Financial fraud." The room went silent again. Emily stared at Ryan. "What did you do?" Ryan tried to laugh it off. "This is ridiculous." But David continued speaking. "Over the past year, Ryan attempted to use company documents to apply for private loans." My chest tightened. "He forged my signature," I said quietly. Ryan's head snapped toward me. "You never proved that." David calmly slid another paper forward. "Actually, we did." The document showed the loan applications Ryan had submitted. My name was signed at the bottom. But the handwriting didn't match. A professional handwriting expert had already confirmed it. Nathan slammed his hand on the table. "You tried to steal from Dad." Ryan looked around the room, desperate for support. But no one defended him. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Ryan, why would you do this? For the first time, Ryan looked truly trapped. Then he whispered the truth. I needed the money. But I was going to fix it later. The room stayed quiet. Because everyone understood something now. Ryan hadn't just made one mistake. He had built an entire life on lies. And that life was collapsing right in front of him. Ryan suddenly dropped into a chair. His confidence was gone. Dad, please, he said quietly. The anger in the room faded, replaced by something heavier. Desperation. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. I messed up, he admitted. Emily wiped her eyes. Ryan, you pushed Dad down the stairs. Ryan shook his head quickly. I didn't mean to. He looked at me with fear. I was angry. I panicked. Then he said something that shocked everyone. The lender said they would hurt me if I didn't pay them. Emily gasped. You owe dangerous people? Ryan nodded slowly. They gave me 2 weeks. 2 weeks. The same amount of time since the fall. That meant Ryan had been trying to take the company before those people came for him. Nathan shook his head. So you tried to destroy Dad's life to save your own? Ryan looked at me again. Dad, you're the only one who can fix this. The room waited for my answer. For a moment, I remembered the little boy he used to be. But then I remembered the stairs. The push. The lies. And the plan to erase me. I took a deep breath. Ryan. I will not save you from the consequences of your choices. And those words changed everything. Ryan stood up suddenly. You're all turning against me, he shouted. Nathan glared at him. You did this to yourself. But Ryan wasn't finished. He pointed at me angrily. Dad is lying. He's confused from the fall. Emily looked shocked. Ryan, stop. But he kept going. He's trying to control everything. Ryan grabbed the papers on the table and threw them down. This trust thing isn't real. David calmly walked forward. It's already registered and legally binding. Ryan laughed nervously. You think a few papers will stop me? That's when he made his biggest mistake. He said something he shouldn't have. If Dad hadn't refused to sign the papers that night, none of this would have happened. The room froze. Emily stared at him slowly. Wait. You just admitted there was a fight. Ryan realized what he had done. He tried to correct himself. But it was too late. Emily's voice shook. You lied to us about the fall. Ryan looked around the room. Every face now looked at him with disbelief. The last lie he had been holding on to had just collapsed. Emily slowly stepped back from Ryan. I defended you, she said quietly. Ryan tried to reach for her arm. Emily, listen. She pulled away. You told me Dad slipped. Her voice cracked. You cried when you told me that. Ryan couldn't meet her eyes. Nathan stepped forward. You pushed him. Ryan didn't respond. Emily shook her head in disbelief. All this time, you were trying to take the company. Ryan whispered something barely audible. I had no choice. Emily's anger exploded. You always had a choice. Her voice filled the room. You could have asked for help. But instead, you tried to destroy our father. Ryan finally broke. I was scared, he shouted. But the room had already changed. The family that once trusted him was now seeing the truth. And that truth was painful. Emily wiped tears from her face. I don't recognize you anymore. Ryan stood alone in the middle of the room. The power he once had was gone. But the worst part was still coming. Because the next knock on the door would bring consequences Ryan never expected. Right then, someone knocked on the front door. Everyone froze. Nathan opened it. 2 men stood outside. Ryan's face went white when he saw them. Emily whispered, Who are they? Ryan didn't answer. One of the men stepped inside. We're looking for Ryan Bennett. Ryan looked like he might faint. They found me. I felt a cold wave move through the room. Are these the people you owe money to? Nathan asked. But David stepped forward quickly. Actually, they're not. The men showed their badges. They were financial investigators. Ryan's knees nearly buckled. We need to ask you some questions about several fraudulent loan applications, one of them said. Ryan looked at me in shock. You reported me? I shook my head slowly. No. David answered instead. The bank did. Ryan had used too many forged documents. The bank had noticed. The investigation had already started. Ryan realized something terrifying. His problems were bigger than family now. The law was involved. And there was nowhere left to run. Ryan sat down heavily. The investigators spoke calmly. "Mr. Bennett, we're not arresting you tonight," one said. "But you will need to cooperate with our investigation." Ryan nodded slowly. His voice sounded empty now. "I understand." Emily looked devastated. Nathan looked furious. I simply watched quietly. Ryan looked up at me again. "You planned all of this?" I shook my head. "No, Ryan. You planned this when you chose greed over family." The investigators handed him documents to sign. Then they left. The room stayed silent for a long moment. Ryan looked older somehow. Broken. Finally he spoke again. "I lost everything." I looked at him carefully. "No. You lost the things you tried to steal. Because there was still something he could rebuild. His life. But only if he faced the truth." Ryan looked down at the floor. And for the first time all night, he didn't argue. Ryan stood slowly. "I should go," he said. No one stopped him. Emily looked away. Nathan crossed his arms. Ryan walked toward the door. Then he turned back to me. "Dad. I'm sorry." It was the first real apology I had heard. But some damage can't be undone with a few words. "I hope one day you become the man I raised," I said quietly. Ryan nodded. Then he walked out of the house. The door closed behind him. And just like that, the storm was over. But the silence left behind felt heavy. Emily sat down and cried. Nathan rubbed his face in frustration. I looked around the room slowly. Family can build you. Family can break you. And sometimes, family teaches the hardest lessons. But the story wasn't over yet. Because the future of our family still had to be rebuilt. Over the next few weeks, things slowly changed. Emily started helping more with the company. Nathan took a larger role as well. For the first time, the business truly became a family effort. But we also made something clear. Leadership would no longer be given because of birth order. It would be earned. Every employee saw the difference. The company grew stronger. Trust returned slowly. But the pain of Ryan's betrayal stayed with us. One afternoon Emily asked me something. "Do you think Ryan will ever come back?" I thought about that carefully. "I hope he does," I said. "But not for the money. For the family. Because money had nearly destroyed us. And we would never let it do that again." Months passed. The company recovered. Our family healed slowly. But I never forgot the moment at the top of those stairs. And the lesson it taught me. Sometimes love means protecting someone from their own worst choices. Even if it hurts. One evening Emily asked if I regretted what I did. I shook my head. No. Because the truth saved our family. Secrets would have destroyed it. Ryan made his choices. And he will live with them. But I also know something important. People can change. If they choose to face their mistakes. That decision is now his. If you're listening to this story, you might be wondering something. How could a son do something like that? The truth is simple. Greed grows quietly. It starts small. A little lie. A little selfish decision. But if no one stops it, it grows into something dangerous. Ryan didn't wake up one day and decide to push his father down the stairs. He walked down that path one bad choice at a time. And eventually, he lost himself. That's why families must protect more than money. They must protect values. Respect. Honesty. Responsibility. Because without those things, even the closest families can fall apart. And if there's one lesson my story should leave you with, it's this. Inheritance is not something you take. It is something you prove you deserve. Inheritance is something you earn.